'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
Bienvenidas al podcast Dos Bold Latinas. Aquí están sus hosts, Jatna Abreu
y Rosibel Madera Vialet, dos latinas feministas born in Santo Domingo y in New York.
Passionate about Latina empowerment, Spanglish,
learning, growth, and so much more.
Hola mujeres, and welcome back to our podcast. For today's episode, we thought it would be a good idea to expand a little more on some of the things we discussed in our last episode during our first Bold Latina chat with the amazing women who joined us. No sé si se recuerdan, pero una de las preguntas que contestamos had to do with tradiciones and if any of us still carry any type of tradition currently based on our culture. Entonces empezamos pensando que deberíamos dedicar un episodio en la importancia de mantenernos conectadas a nuestras raíces y cultura. Porque la realidad es que muchas de nosotras nacimos en los Estados Unidos o emigramos a este país a una temprana edad, lo cual mayormente hace difícil mantener esa conexión con nuestra cultura unless we incorporate some of the traditions within our day-to-day activities, como en cosas que vemos, cosas que compramos, cosas que escuchamos, and things that we do with our families.
So, gracias, Jana, por esa gran introducción. Y ya que estamos hablando de culturas y tradiciones, yo quiero que date salud. So, chicas, chicos, ¿escucharon eso? Salud. Estamos tomando nuestra cerveza querida Presidente. So, claro, es hecha aquí en los Estados Unidos. Todavía no me sabe igual. Está aquí ceniza. Pero como que ya no me sabe igual a nuestra tierra querida, República Dominicana.
Pero it'll do for now.
Yes. Pero quiero comenzar también poniendo un poquito de sazón en sus vidas. So, Jatna, ¿qué tal esto aquí?
Yeah.
So, ¿cuántas conocen a Mili Quesada? Una de nuestras divas merengueras de nuestra querida República Dominicana. So, ahí. Ay, Jan.
¡Huepa! Ese merengue, ese sazón dominicano.
Otra que nos encanta es Miriam Cruz. Pero nada, ya que la pusimos a moverse un poquito los pies, las caderas, sin pensarlo. Porque yo soy una de esas que me dicen que yo tengo 2 pies izquierdos. Pero nacemos con eso en la sangre. Yo tengo una niña de 1 año y medio. Y esa niña, de que oye música, papi le pone su perico ripiado. Y ella se pone a bailar. Y I'm like, ¿y de dónde ella sacó eso? Ella comienza a mover la nalguita.
Ella es dominicana.
So, es algo con la cual nacemos. Pero una cosa a la otra se nos va olvidando, escondiendo, porque no lo ponemos en práctica, no vivimos en un environment así. Entonces, de eso se trata hoy, de que no importa de qué país tú seas, de que tú encuentres hacer algo que siempre te conecte a tus raíces, tu cultura. Y algo de la República Dominicana que yo digo, there's so many fun facts out there. Quiero compartir unas de mis favoritas y es de que Dominican Republic is the only country whose flag features the Bible. So the founding father, Juan Pablo Duarte, designed the Dominican flag, which was adopted on March 21st, year 1908, making it the only one in the world to have the image of the Holy Bible in it. The Bible is open to the Gospel of John chapter 8, verse 32, which reads, "And the truth shall make you free." So the flag is all comprised of three colors: red, white, and blue, with each color representing something different. For example, the white is the cross in the center, represents salvation. The red rectangles represent the blood of heroes who fought for the independence, and the blue rectangles stand for liberty. So yeah, that was a little fun fact there out of many that we have, but that one I just feel really makes it unique to Dominican Republic.
Y a pesar de cómo están las cosas en el mundo ahora, donde necesitamos mucho apoyo como humanidad y pues mucha reflexión, obviamente con todo lo que está pasando, we still wanted to take some time to share with you some of the things we personally do to maintain that connection to our roots and our culture. And so there's a few things, a list of things that we put together, Rosie and I, that we usually do on a day-to-day basis to ensure that we are still connected to our, Dominican roots, and our kids are also connected to our roots, and they don't, they grow up knowing and showing that, and go and move forward with knowing that we came from the DR, and even though that they were born here, they still have those roots, and that's still their culture. So with that, the first thing that we will share is that you should, one of the things that we usually do, I know that both of us do this all the time with our family, or whenever we can, maybe like once a year or every other year, is just to go back to your country, right? To your roots, to the motherland. And, sea porque tú naciste allí o porque tus padres o abuelos nacieron allí. I know it's obviously hard to do that now because of everything that's going on and, our circumstances. But once we're actually able to go back to our normal lives, make sure that you're making an effort to go back and spend time with your family if you have family there. And again, like I said, like for me, it's, we try to go back to the R once, at least like every other year, just because my parents are still there. And we want to make sure that I take my son, and that I also, when we're back there, that we go to places that I usually like, so that he knows that, mommy was born there, papi was born there. And so, he can continue to carry out those traditions, even though he was born in the U.S. So for you, Rosie, what do you have to say about that? Like, I know your family goes back as well, but like what?
Yeah, so ever since I was little, every summer my parents would send me to DR.
Oh, nice.
So my entire summers were spent there. And with our kids now, especially my son, he loves going back to Santo Domingo. He doesn't call it Dominican Republic. I think we all say Santo Domingo en vez de República Dominicana.
Sí.
And my son has really, like, he already knows when we land there. Like, ever since his first time going there, he was a year old. And something that I love to embrace about the beauty of our country is how it brings pride to connect to our roots. So talking of going back to the motherland, something that reminds me that's really, I already know from the airplane when I land there. You hear all the Dominicans clapping in the airplane. Yes. I haven't been to many countries yet, but so far I think that's the only one where people start clapping.
Absolutely. I always remember that.
So my son already, like, he knows that. And then we get out the airplane y ahí están ya la gente con la guida, la tambora. We hear it, as soon as we get off the airplane, we hear our beautiful instruments live at the airport. And then it's like te llevan hasta después que tú pasas aduana. Like, you even get like live performances. And I've been to Mexico, and I didn't get it like that, but we had a small performance. We did go to oh my gosh, no, I forget. Anyways, pero I'm sure that it doesn't matter where you're from, that as soon as you land there to your motherland, you already feel different. It's just something that you just feel connected. Like, you feel like you belong there a lot more. And that's how I feel, honestly, when I go back there.
Yeah. I can relate for sure.
So talking of, how to stay connected to your cultura, a pesar de que vivimos fuera de nuestro país, es con la comida. Like food is everything we're connecting to our roots, to me at least. And I'm sure to you, Jana. Porque we were talking the other day, it's like my son loves Malta. Jana's son still doesn't know what Malta is, but I know I have friends that are Hispanic, Latinas, and they don't all like Malta. But I have found that it's more of a Caribbean acquired taste. So when I say it's like that's something like it's everything to that, it's because it's just something that we're born with. And like I said, we connect with taste buds, acquired taste. Por ejemplo, jugo de chinola, which is passion fruit juice. Sancocho, which is like a soup, what we call Dominican stew. La bandera, which they call habichuela y carne. Los tres golpes, which is mangú, huevo, queso y salami. Y podemos seguir hablando de las comidas. Pero esta que yo puse, yo la menciono porque Jana es testigo. Dice, a veces dice, pero tú eres más dominicana que yo.
Sí, no, de verdad, señores, porque obviamente yo nací y me crié en la República Dominicana, pero luego que yo llegué aquí, obviamente yo aprendí a cocinar en la República Dominicana, pero hay veces que cuando tú empiezas a tratar la comida americana, ¿verdad? Tú dices que, ok, bueno, yo obviamente sé mi comida, dónde viene mi comida y obviamente la sé cocinar, pero a veces uno también quiere tratar de que, ok, déjame introducirme a la cultura americana y uno se vuelve como la mitad y mitad, pero cuando yo voy, por lo menos en mi casa es como mitad y mitad, ¿verdad? Sí, yo cocino comida dominicana todo el tiempo porque obviamente yo quiero que mi hijo pues sí siga comiendo esa comida y a él le encanta el arroz, le fascina. Y pues yo se lo cocino todos los días. Pero hay veces que nosotros también tratamos como mix it up a little bit. Y no es todo el tiempo de que Dominican food. Pero cuando yo voy a la casa de Rosy, ella siempre está cocinando algo dominicano. Like, there's not one day que yo voy a su casa y ella está haciendo algo like completely, something completely out of the ordinary. Y ella siempre hace like the hardest things también, como like sancocho. Like, I don't even know how to make sancocho. Like, and then habichuela con dulce, which is my favorite. And again, I don't know if it was because it's so hard that I was just like, or it takes a lot of time to make, but I'm one of those people that I cook because kind of like I have to cook because everybody has to eat at the house, but it's not like my forte. Like, oh my gosh, like I love doing this. And I feel like Rosy, that's like one of her things that like she enjoys doing. Like, even though for some people it's kind of like a chore, like, oh, I have to cook today because, everybody has to eat and whatever. But for her, it's like, oh, it's fine. And it's siempre todo is like, oh, that's easy. Un sancocho, like, what? She's like, oh, it just takes time, but that's easy. And I'm just like, yeah, no. But yeah, I'm glad, I have this friend that makes those hard things and then I can still try them.
I think Janet comes from, toditas nos podemos relacionar que si le damos, no es para ofender a nadie, pero si tú eres de un país latino y que tú estés aquí, le das a tus hijos y que mac and cheese, tus padres, especialmente tus madres, te va a decir, pero eso no es comida, niña. Y eso es lo que tú le das a tu hijo. So I feel obligated, Jana, to kind of like give him what my ancestors think is real food, which everything is real food, pero that's one of the big things that comes into row with that, and also being married to a Dominican guy. So, and I feel, to be honest, like that's the main thing that I feel that keeps me connected, because now when we go back to the art, like we do every year, my son eats everything that's offered to him. Y él como que, and he just loves it, como he loves, y cuando vamos para Montecristi para tomar agua de coco desde el coco, and I'm like, that's, to me, es un orgullo, to be honest.
Seriously.
Because I'm like, I don't even like that.
Es más dominicano que tú.
Ya lo sabe.
Ok, bueno, la otra cosa que nosotros también hacemos es que, leemos libros que se relacionan con nosotros. O sea, leer libros que se relacionan con tu cultura, donde mencionan cosas de tu país o cosas de tus raíces, o libros que se han relacionado con autores que nacieron en el país, ¿verdad? Que tú naciste o que tu familia nació, de tu cultura. Porque, por ejemplo, para mí, yo trato siempre de comprar libros que que sean escritos por latinos o no necesariamente dominicanos. O sea, si hay gente que un autor dominicano que escribió un libro, pues claro, yo lo compro y se lo leo a mi hijo, pero yo trato de que por lo menos mantener las raíces latinas específicamente, ¿verdad? Generally. Y yo trato de comprarle libros que hablen sobre cosas como, tú sabes, como el color de su piel, como su pelo, o hay un libro que se llama Island Born, I think. Y ese libro fue escrito por un dominicano, por un autor dominicano, y yo se lo compré a mi hijo porque habla un poco, la niña nació en los Estados Unidos, pero la familia de ella es de la isla del Caribe y ella vive en un lugar donde les recuerda tanto a su cultura como los Diablos con Pueblos, es como algo que celebramos el 27 de febrero en la República Dominicana, donde se eviten como customs y parece como el demonio, to be honest. And then le dan como golpe a la gente con unos balloons. Y entonces como ese tipo de cosas, yo la viví en la República Dominicana, pero como mi hijo a lo mejor nunca va a poder ver eso, yo trato de comprarle libros en el cual él pueda ver las cosas que pasan en la República Dominicana, que se relacionan con nosotros para que él aprenda de su cultura. Y no obstante, también que sea en español, para que él también pueda seguir aprendiendo el idioma, ya que obviamente su primer idioma, vamos a ser honestos, va a ser el inglés. O sea que para mí es muy importante que comprarle libros y leerle libros que se relacionen a nuestra cultura.
Yes. Y eso es algo que yo estoy aprendiendo de Jana, porque para ser sincera, yo nunca he tomado un libro en español para leer. Yo siempre decía, ok, yo leo la Biblia en español. Parece porque como que yo crecí y yo decía, yo la entiendo mejor. Cuando yo hablo con Dios es en español, no sé por qué. Muy raro que hable en inglés. Ya ese es otro tema. So a mi niño, si yo le leía en español, era la Biblia de niño que tenía, pero Jana me comenzó a regalar libros para mi niño en español. Y fue mucho más especial porque mi niño se llama Max y los libros eran como 5. Se llama, más va al dentista, más va a la escuela, más va a la peluquería, etcétera. Y el niño mío, que hace como 2 o 3 años que tú le regalaste esos libros, y él aprendió a leerlos. Y yo nunca decía, como yo nunca me ponía eso como una prioridad, como, like on purpose, like I never purposely would buy books in Spanish. Like I'm like, okay, he likes this cartoon books, or he got this book from school. Like I would just let him choose the books, and then I'm like, you know what? He doesn't know about these books, so why don't I start choosing books more strategically and with more meaning behind it? So yeah, that's like something new.
Paving the way for for him to still, like, it's fine that they read whatever they want to read, right? Mm-hmm. Because they grow up into being like their own people. Mm-hmm. But I think for us, like, I think it's our duty, or like our responsibility, like, parents que tienen papá dominicano o cualquier cultura que vinieron de otros países, a que tú sigas, ¿verdad? Tú pases ¿verdad? Esa información, tú pases esas raíces. Entonces, ¿por qué no comenzar desde pequeño a que, ¿verdad? Entiendan sobre su cultura y que cuando ellos sigan creciendo, ya cuando se hagan hombres y mujeres, pues ya, esa es su decisión de whether or not they want to continue, to carry those traditions, but at least we can say that we did our job.
Our
right?
part.
Like, exactly.
Hicimos nuestra parte.
Exacto.
Yes. So, ya saben, vamos a Google y buscamos libros de X país y van a aparecer muchísimos. Y ya hablan y escucharon de que a mí me encanta la música, a pesar de que tengo 2 pies izquierdos. Pero when you listen to music that relates to you, basically we are all born with music groups, right? However, somehow we just forget of what we really were born listening to. For example, yo como dominicana, aún no se me olvida lo que es el merengue, pero sí tengo primos o primas que han nacido aquí y ya no se identifican con el merengue. No es algo que tú te montes en el carro con ellos y que ellos están escuchando. But so far, I'm trying to do that intentionally with my kids, and they identify the music, Latin music, when they listen to it.
Yeah.
Because I personally still listen to mostly music in Spanish. And I just feel like music is another thing that connects you to that, because when someone sees you eating mangú, te van a decir, oh, tú eres dominicana. O si alguien te oye escuchando merengue, bachata, salsa, típico, te dicen, oh, tú eres dominicana. So I just feel like something that just speaks to us of who we are.
I agree. And for me too, like when I do specifically listen to a lot of like Dominican, singers también, como, like bachata and merengue, and very unpopular, what is it called? The dembow. and the only reason why I listen to it is because like my husband is like crazy about it. And it's like, how could you not, you know what I mean? Like listen to it. Like,
you do get in the mood.
So you get in the mood, and so you just continue to listen to it. But I also listen to a lot of other like Latin artists, right? Yeah. Like other Latinos. So like for me, my favorite person right now, because I think it's like by like season, like by mood or by época or whatever is happening like in my life. Like I choose like a person, and I know I'm a big, I'm a huge fan of like, Beyonce and like, American artists, but I also support a lot of like other like Latino artists, which I can also relate to, just because of like, maybe not because they're from my country, but because of the music that they create and they sing. It's just like, it touches like my soul or whatever. So for me right now, like one person that I've been listening to like all the time, like all of her albums and everything, like for the past year and a half, it's like, her name is Cani Garcia. And it's like, for me, she sings like, her music is like for the soul. So whatever it is you're going through, like, it's just, I don't know, like if you listen to her music, it just makes you connect, like it makes you feel like, oh, there's so much more beyond, like whatever is happening right now. And you just it's like a mood. So I've been like crazy, listening to her for the past year and a half. If you don't know Cani Garcia, like I suggest you look her up. It may not be for your, I don't know, like your taste, because she's very, like, ¿cómo se dice? Como romántica, I guess. And then
she's
sometimes
very deep.
Yes, that's it. Ella's super deep. And then I know that like I put Rosy into, like, oh my gosh, you gotta listen to this lady. Like she's so good. Which I think you listened to the first album. And then when she came out with her last album, I told Rosy like, oh, did you see that so-and-so? So I shared that with Rosy, that she had a new album. And then when Rosy was listening to it, she was like, I don't know, but this one, she just feels like, what did you say? Depressed? What?
I don't remember.
You were like, yeah, I don't know about this one. Like, I feel like she's just on another, what I mean?
Es que usually, I mean, cuando yo estoy fregando, that's when I usually like listening to music, and it's como like to keep me going. Okay, I gotta get this done. Yo la puse para eso. Y por eso, para la música, hay diferentes géneros, diferentes momentos de la vida. Like, I listen to a lot of Latin pop. Como a mí me encanta Marco Antonio Solís, Alejandro Sanz, like all of that, like that to me is like when I'm folding laundry. Como like, oh, it's like I'm all up in my feelings. And then when I'm washing dishes, yo quiero ir, por ejemplo, un poquito de reggaetón o merengue, salsa. When I'm in the shower, it's like, okay, algo diferente. Pero,
at least you switch it up.
Yes.
Sometimes I just stick to like, yo creo que ya yo tengo a mi esposo, like, hasta la coronilla, because it's just like, oh my gosh, otra vez. Yo creo que hasta él se sabe la canción ya. Yo lo he escuchado cantando las canciones cuando él está haciendo los dishes en la cocina. And I'm like, oh, no, que no te gustaba. Pero it's like,
no le queda de otra.
Exacto. I listen to it so much that he's just like, I mean,
So, you saw what just happened right here. We got so passionate of music because
clearly.
It just relates to us. So no more to say.
Yeah. And then the next thing is carrying out your tradition. One tradition that you like the most about your culture, your roots. And so for me, being Dominican, we do celebrate, like we know that in the US there's like a Mother's Day, a Father's Day, right? Like we have our own dates for that here. And in the DR, we also have our own Mother's Day and Father's Day date. So we tend to like still celebrate those. Like, so we get kind of like we might not like gift, you know, like I don't gift my husband twice, obviously, but we do acknowledge the fact that we do have like a Dominican's Father's Day and a Dominican's Mother Day. So we still obviously acknowledge it, and we still call our family members and still say, you know, Happy Dominican's Father's Day, just to acknowledge it, just because we know that's like one of our traditions, right? Like it's something we don't want to let go of. And then also like traditions of like different, we talked about this already, but like food, right? Like different plates. So like if you know that during, at least in the DR, we have a week that's called Semana Santa. That's what we call it. I think for here, like it happens to fall into like spring break. And so for us over there, people, it's similar to spring break, but it's more like, and people do go like on vacation and things like that. And people,
it's party.
and kids, yeah, it's like a party similar to here, but technically it's more like a religious thing where, you know, people take time to like be, you know, reflective and like, you know, just think about what they've done and just be thankful about everything. But we usually make habichuelas con dulce, which is so good. And even though I already said this, but like I don't know how to make it because I think it's really hard. I usually find, you know, like people that would make it, that I'd be like, oh, hey, are you, you know, so-and-so, like, are you making habichuela con dulces this week? And so if it's like my mother-in-law, like she would always send me like a little container con habichuela con dulce. Like I know recently, like Rosie, you know, this year she made some. And so she also sent me, you know, dropped some at home. So, you know, things like that. Like you still, even like if it's not me making it, like I still try to make sure that like, you know, I still get it from someone else. But then again, traditions like that. So I know that Rosie also like has other traditions from the DR that she also carries. So like you mentioned
Dia de los Reyes. My dad, he's like, no, yo regalo para los Reyes. Which to me, after I'm older, to be honest, is like easier because I get to skip. Okay, for my kids, I have to do el 25 de diciembre.
Yeah.
Pero like for older adults, like yo todavía, esto no es algo dominicano, pero las roscas I acquired here from the Mexican culture, which I like it. Como like, oh, los reyes, ¿quién le sale muñequito? Que vamos a hacer tamales. But it still keeps us connected to our roots. Y hacemos chocolate caliente ese día, and that's when I give the gifts. So when I say as an adult I enjoy it more to give gifts, el Día de los Reyes, el día 6 de enero, is because I save money and I don't have to be in the chaos of you know, with everyone else out there in the shopping. So I guess a lot of stuff on sale and it's a lot more calm. And it's like you enjoy it more that day because you don't have to think about like, oh, I gotta go and visit these people and that people. So it's something that just still makes it unique for us there too.
Agreed.
Y también ya cuando cambiando de tema, películas y shows produced in your country. Like how many of us actually watch movies that are produced in our countries or watch shows? I know I grew up, my parents, they always had to have a cable company que tuviera Telemicro or
The Dominican
the
channel.
Dominican channel, yeah. Porque con Univision ahí no se veían las noticias de lo que estaba pasando en República Dominicana. Ahora, ya papi con su teléfono inteligente, he's up to date. But when I was growing up, that was not out there. But for me personally, like, I have pantalla. Jana does too. Like, I downloaded it so I can watch some movies that are made in Dominican Republic. And my son now, and me dice ahora, oh, can we watch so-and-so movie? And no, that was so funny. Because we learn more about our culture. And our children, they start asking questions, which turn into a cultural education. And my son, he loves those movies. Like, he relates so much to their humor and actions because it's just something como que is a little slang that we see in the movies or cultural, like different traditions that you see in those type of movies too. So it's like you relate a lot more to those different shows or movies that are produced in your country, or even some that the actresses can do that for you. And of course, there's telenovelas out there, but I'm more on the side of movies and shows.
Yeah.
And cartoons. Let's not forget about that. I do. My son, his first language was Spanish. Like he didn't start speaking English, and so he started school because at home, all his cartoons were in Spanish.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I kind of, I mean, I tried doing, but then I also failed to do because I know that like Max was right, like his your mom-in-law was watching him, right?
Yes.
And they only speak Spanish. But like for me, Jerry goes to daycare, and I mean, obviously, like daycare, everyone speaks English. There's really like it's not a bilingual daycare or anything. So it's kind of hard, you know, for me to put stuff in Spanish for him, like the cartoons, because he's already used to like being at daycare for 8 hours a day, and then they're only speaking English. And so when he comes back home and like even if I try and attempt to change the language of what he's watching, like on Netflix or whatever, he will tell me like, what is that? Like, mommy, like, please change that. But, you know, he's only 3, so he wouldn't, you know, he's not going to know like, oh, English versus Spanish, but he just knows it's different.
Oh, yeah. My son, after he's learned English, he's like, it doesn't sound the same.
Yes.
They're not saying the same thing. Like that Paw Patrol and PJ Masks theme song is not the same, mommy.
Yeah. So I think, but you know, at the end of the day, like we still have to try, and even like supporting, you know, actors and actors that are from our countries, you know, that are, you know, casted in certain movies or shows, and even watching shows that are not even you know, not necessarily like English created, whatever, like American films or American shows. Like I know lately, like we've watched and that wasn't produced here. And on Netflix, there's this show or series called Oscuros Deseos, so Dark Desires. Yeah, that. And Dark Desires, like in English, but it's in Spanish basically, and it was filmed in Mexico, I think, right? Like all of it was in Mexico, and
I think so.
Mostly everyone in the cast is Mexican.
Yeah.
And I mean, we like that. I mean, it's in Spanish. It's like our native language, and you know, it's not something we're used to probably watching. But I think, you know, we should still support those type of, you know, like films and things like that, just because like that's our roots, right? That's our culture, and not to, you know, I'm not gonna lie, like it was good.
Oh yeah,
like we recommend it.
We watched a little bit too much in 1 week.
Definitely. So the next thing we want, you know, we kind of do that to make sure in ensuring that we are, you know, keeping that those our roots and our culture is obviously like is talking Spanish, right? Like we speak Spanish, nosotros somos, esa es nuestra lengua nativa. Nuestro papá habla en español. You know, we gotta make sure that we have, you know, we teach our kids that they also need to speak Spanish, because at least for me, like I can't afford for my kid not to know English or Spanish, because my parents only speak Spanish, and my, you know, the grandparents, and so it's kind of hard, you know, when you have your parents speak Spanish to your kids and then they don't understand, or they're speaking English to your parents and they're like, I don't understand what he's saying. So I think we have to be very intentional about teaching our kids, you know, the language, and making sure that they are understanding and able to talk to their family members as well. Because at the end of the day, like cuando ellos crezcan and, you know, they get a job, like let's be honest, like if that they're gonna be bilingual, so being bilingual is gonna get them to a lot of places. So the earlier we start, you know, so they can know the language and not just grow up knowing, you know, English, and because we weren't intentional about it, I think it, you know, it would be best, like it's gonna be the best thing for them in their future, you know, even if they don't want to. I think we should push very hard for them to know the language, and you know, because at the end of the day, when they grow up, they're gonna thank us.
Yes, I tell Max, like, mommy has the job that you like, that she has to buy you everything that you want because she knows Spanish. So, because he's at that age now that he doesn't want to talk a lot of Spanish at home, because he knows daddy and I speak English, but it is hard. And that's one of the reasons why I try to intentionally choose specific times. Like, okay, Max, if he starts talking English, yo no te entiendo. And he would get mad. I'm like, repíteme que yo no te entiendo, and then I force him to repeat it. And sometimes it's like if we're just eating breakfast or dinner, like we're just like, okay, we're gonna talk now only Spanish. And then it also helps to keep our bilingual skills polished, because I still struggle. Like my job is to go and talk in public sometimes, and I'll struggle. I'll be like, and like my brain is thinking in English, and I have to translate it in Spanish. So it is very hard. So imagine for a kid. I don't blame them, but we got to keep pushing ourselves. And then the third thing to me that's great of being intentional to speak your native language at home is you feel that uniqueness when you have that slang from your country. I mean, like for us as Dominicans, we have our own slang. As in Mexico, you have your own slang, and etc. I mentioned Mexico because I'm a lot around more Mexican people at my job and friends. But it's like you hear all the different slangs and all the different words, and you're like, if you're Mexican and you're saying that slang, I mean, if you say a slang word from your country, people identify like, oh, but you're from El Salvador or you're from Venezuela, because they hear you saying those unique words to your country. So to me, I love it when I know that I have uniqueness in my country slang, I would say.
Agreed.
Y so también, now que estamos en una era de medios sociales, so social media. Not too long ago, probably a couple years ago, I started being a lot more intentional of following media, artists, informational pages, different podcasts, which one of our main motivators, I remember sharing a podcast. She's Dominican. She's an editor in a magazine in Dominican Republic, and she kind of inspired us to start this podcast. And it's like, so I encourage you to start following people from your culture on your social media platforms. So news media, TV shows, writers from your country, different influencers, magazines, artists, anything that you could relate to that would still make you feel connected, because I know a lot of what's going on back in my country because of social media. It's not so much because I talk to my family that much about specific things, but I still, like when I talk to them, it's like I know what they're talking about, or I can start a conversation because of social media, because I follow different pages and I know what's going on.
Definitely. And the last thing that we do want to talk about is that, regardless of, any of these things that we personally do to maintain that connection to our roots and our culture, I think the most important thing here is for you to be who you are and be authentic, because at the end of the day, whether or not you keep up with your roots or your culture, like obviously you're gonna at some point you're gonna make your own decision as to whether or not that's the path you want to follow or not, and which is okay. So at the end of the day, just make sure that be authentic, be who you are, because your future self will appreciate it, and being true to who you are is the one thing that honestly we wouldn't trade for anything at the end of the day, even if you decide not to like stay connected to your roots and your culture. So yes,
indeed. Yo sí sé que yo me siento súper emocionada porque para mí ha sido un día like wow, recordarles vivir hablando de lo que me identifica como dominicana. Like Jana and I were gonna have Dominican cake.
Yummy.
The Presidente beer. And ironically, today is actually Dominican Father's Day. As we're recording this, we have already spoken to the special men in our lives that we see as a father figure. And we have congratulated them. So it's like, oh my gosh, like today couldn't feel more connected to our roots. We start listening to music to get in the mood before this. So yes, all of this is making, I cannot wait to visit my Quisqueya again. So with that said, I am sure we woke up some memories of your cultural traditions, and hopefully now you're inspired to intentionally keep staying connected. As adults, now it is our job to pass on our traditions to our upcoming generations, along with visiting museums and other historic places while we go back to our countries, our motherland, while we're visiting there. So, mujeres, vamos ahora a seguir moviendo la colita con esta música y seguir para adelante. Yo sé que todavía estamos viviendo momentos únicos, pero Vamos a seguir siendo
make it.
agradecidas de lo que tenemos vida y salud aquí.
We will
Chao,
be okay,
hasta
so
la próxima.
bye.